Dear SoU, this is the first in a 3-part mini-series that captures the evolution of the Stories of Us workshop series. Your first workshop was on September 28th, 2018. I had just moved into a new place. I was in the process of untangling myself from the last project I had helped birth, and it was the day after my 25th birthday. I had been hired the week before. Jen, on the other hand, had just given birth to Lolo 16 days before and was deep in the alternate universe that is postpartum. I had had one meeting with Blair where I showed him a bunch of ideas for activities for that first workshop, and he assured me that he trusted me and whatever I chose. Alex, your first volunteer, joined us at the end of that meeting and brought the enthusiasm that I could not access amidst the sheer anxiety. I was so fresh, so green, it wasn't even funny. That first 2-hour workshop was more than any of us could have expected. I had picked 2 activities, both around the theme of home. The first was a mind map where participants were invited to draw and or write the feelings, images, objects, smells, sounds, physical sensations, and sayings that they associate with the idea of home. The second was an invitation to write a letter to a place, either the place that you came from or the place that you came to. I liked that both activities assumed little about what home looked like for each person, and rather invited them into reflection within a structure, whether it was a mind map or a letter, a structure that could hold a complex relationship. We didn't want language to be a barrier, so we invited people to write in whatever language they felt they could express themselves in. Even so, I wasn't sure how it would be received. After I explained each activity, Alex and I sat down and took our own instructions. It felt important to have something to share. There's a distinct moment that I remember about these first workshops. It comes after a few moments of palpable hesitation among the group. People look around to see what others are doing. They fuss about where to make the first mark on the page, and they click their pens without yet putting it on the page. And then there's a shift. A blanket of silence settles over the room, save for the scribbling of pens, pencils, markers, and pencil crayons. It's the kind of silence that makes you want to extend a 20-minute exercise into a 30-minute exercise. The kind of silence that you want to let drag on. And then we took turns sharing, inviting each other into the homes we had constructed on paper, into the conversations we would have with the places that we came from, if we could. It's been 2.5 years, so I only remember vivid feelings and flashbacks. The number of people in the room who had drawn gardens on their mind maps, the sniffles and the witnessing of the sniffles, and a young man named Frank who spoke about looking at the moon for comfort when he was lonely, because he knew that his family would be looking at the same moon on the other side of the world. There was a woman who wrote and read her letter in Gujarati, tears falling and voice catching as she did, and finally looking up after reading it to see that, despite not understanding the language, her grief was mirrored and held in the eyes of everyone looking back at her. The poetry that fell out of their mouths as they expressed love, longing, gratitude, and grief for the places that felt like home both broke our hearts and put them back together, all at the same time. SoU, I felt you, what you were capable of holding, and what you could become for the first time in that room. Mind you, I still had no idea how we were going to convince people to share stories for publication within a 2-hour workshop. But in those first 2 hours, you showed me enough magic for me to trust you, to keep following the breadcrumbs in the promise of more.